Well, everybody, D-Dog, Dave Raw here for Dynamic Rainmakers. Tuesday night, the 5th of April. It's windy. I mean, we've been having some serious winds today, gusts up to 60. So this is one of the things you really got to be careful of when you're doing this type of work, especially if you have a high-profile vehicle. People get crazy. So if you have like a cargo van or a Sprinter, it's even worse. In my Jeep, it's not that bad, but still I can feel it sometimes. So you gotta just be careful with winds. Yes, and then we have some areas that looks like we're going to be going into snow or rain or something. But let me tell you, in a short time I've been out, maybe within about, I'd say 15 minutes, it went from 64 to 54. So we definitely have some bad weather coming in and that much of a temperature drop. But just remember to keep yourself aware of what's going on when there's high winds, not just your vehicle, but other people that are driving around may not be prepared for sudden gusts and stuff. So something else that I haven't heard being talked about too much in this type of work are you need to carry any type of thing for hauling things. Well, of course, if you have just small samples, you just need a cooler, and those are pretty easy to get, hold on to and stuff. Unless you're like a transfer driver, have larger coolers, then it starts becoming an issue. Some places will actually provide a dolly for you to use, but it depends on the size of your vehicle. So what I found works best across different size vehicles are those foldable, they're like a wagon. You use it for carrying stuff. Folds open into a nice big area. You can usually carry at least one large cooler on it. It's pretty heavy. I've used them when I've had to move light cargo in airport terminals and stuff. They come in really handy. So think about getting something like that. Since they fold up, they're really easy to move around. Then they're kind of heavy, but not too bad. So those are the type of things you need to really think about. And I'm going to be covering stuff like that in more detail in later videos on equipment that you should have. Most of this stuff is pretty inexpensive, but what's really good about all of these things, you can just write them off as a business expense. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing this type of work. Depending on what you're going to be moving, you want to think about getting decent gloves. Those inexpensive gripper gloves are a good thing to have if you're going to be carrying things that are kind of odd sizes and slippery. Those are a good thing to have. If you're doing cargo van or maybe even larger Sprinter box trucks, small box trucks, you want to think about getting decent gloves. If you're doing box truck stuff, you may even want to get a pallet jack. It's not necessary, but it just depends on the type of stuff you're going to be moving around. So keep that stuff in mind. And if you have enough room, if you're doing a small box truck or like a Sprinter van, you might want to think about getting one plastic pallet that's easy to move around. They don't take up much space if you put them on end. Just to help move things around. A lot of people get annoyed, especially if you're moving a lot of boxes on a pallet and they don't wrap them. It doesn't make much sense just to do one box at a time. So I get that shrink wrap stuff that comes on a roll, and I usually put that around. A lot of people say, oh, it's not your job to do it, but it adds professionalism to what you're doing. So that's something else to consider. They're not very expensive. I mean, it's like $25, $30 for 1,500 feet of this stuff, and it's about 2.5, 3 feet wide. So I get a roll of that. that's deductible too. All these things are write-offs. So those are some things to think about in this business. But like today, this weather is really ridiculous. My Jeep is getting buffeted around some on this ride. It's not too bad yet. I don't know what it's going to be like later. Usually, once the sun goes down, it drops off with the wind, at least, hopefully. So, I see that some people are starting to really complain, and it's justifiable, about low cargo rates. Some of that is really, like in this stuff I'm doing with this independent courier, I know what I'm getting paid every week. It's every route is the same, regardless of how many stops I have. It's the same pay. So I get a pretty good amount at the end of the week. And with the fuel surcharge that they're giving us, it helps even more. But there's really no reason to. I don't know. People are getting so upset about these rates. I know they're low in some regards, but it's just kind of weird to me because they can bid higher. You gotta know your worth. And they're not really taking a lot of things into consideration. Like what I'm doing, I get a pretty decent rate per mile, and I'm happy with it because it's only 60 miles a night. It's nothing big. A lot of people are working with brokers or dispatchers that refuse to go up to a certain amount, and there's issues with that too. I'm not dispatched. I have a route, or at least a fixed route right now. So just keep your value in mind, your expenses. Take everything into consideration, because a lot of people don't. And they also have a lot of needless expenses, like always getting expensive meals when they're driving around and stuff. And a lot of that time, you don't need that. You just take some snacks with you or something to keep the cost down. Do like I'm doing with my fuel. I'm using Get Upside for my fuel. I'll put the link in my description, because that gives me a cash back every time I fill up. There's certain deals you can get into if you use certain cards. There's a come and go discounts you can get. So things like that, they add up. And it just depends on how you want to work this stuff. I was starting to use a fuel card. It's like for your fleets, but apparently I wasn't using it enough, so the company dropped me, which was kind of their disadvantage. You do save some with those too. So, let's keep those things in mind for expenses. And that's about all I have for tonight. I'll be talking to y'all later. Have a good day and safe night. Bye.